Fern, thanks so much for inviting me to join your audience today. I am really excited to have the opportunity to talk about a topic that I am sure is on the minds of many of your audience listeners, which is a topic about how do I negotiate in this challenging economic environment. Clearly, this environment is creating a lot of stress for many of you. Many of you are experiencing the stress of having customers come to you and ask for price reductions. You're experiencing the stress of finding it challenging to close deals and get deals accomplished. You have a lot of stress in this environment. And today, in our webcast, we're going to talk about some very specific strategies that you can use to negotiate in these challenging situations. We're also going to talk about some traps that you want to watch out for that occur when these kinds of difficult environments emerge. I also, though, want to talk about the opportunities that this environment creates. I think it would be unfortunate to only experience the stress of this environment without taking advantage of the opportunity that this crisis creates for you. And I want to think today about some of that opportunity as well. When we think about the opportunity of this crisis, one of the key things we want to remember is that crisis creates a platform for change. I like to say that in gain environments, the status quo is very sticky. It's like rubber cement, and it's really difficult to change things when we are in positive economic environments. Crisis economic environments create a sense of loss, and that loss creates an opportunity to make changes. That's because people are risk averse in the domain of gains and risk seeking in the domain of losses. What does that mean? Well, in the domain of losses, think about it. I don't like losses. I don't want to have a loss. I prefer the risky chance of losing more rather than having a certain loss. So I am risk seeking in losses. I feel very different about gains. I like my gains. I want to hold on to my gains. I want the certainty of my gains. So in the domain of gains, I'm risk averse. I prefer a certain gain over the risky chance of a greater gain. It's this risk seeking in the domain of losses that makes an economic crisis like the one we're experiencing today such a prime opportunity to lead change. And I've been talking to many CEOs, probably 2,000 CEOs over the past 6 months, about how to handle negotiations in these turbulent times. One of the things I have seen over and over is that many CEOs are taking advantage of this crisis to make changes in their organization. Many of the things they're changing and blaming on the economic crisis actually have very little to do with the crisis. For example, I've seen CEOs who are selling off assets that they have long wanted to sell off, but they couldn't get board support for doing that in the past. And now they're using this crisis, this platform for change, to get rid of those assets. I see them doing reductions in force. I see them upgrading the talent of their workforce. I see them shutting down facilities. Frequently, as I said, they blame the economic environment, but these changes have little to do with the economic environment. They're about changes that CEOs have wanted to make that they haven't been able to make because of the stickiness of the status quo. So, one thing I want to highlight to your audience members is the importance of thinking about this opportunity and considering how are you leveraging this crisis to make changes in your organization. What are you changing in your organization that has needed to be changed perhaps for a while, but that you're going to take this opportunity to make that change? I think we never want to lose sight of the platform that this crisis creates. I also think that this crisis creates a number of other opportunities. For example, it is a great opportunity to get new clients. Just like the status quo is sticky within the organization, the status quo is also sticky with our customers. In gain environments, people generally will stick to their existing suppliers. They don't want to switch because they have certain gains from their existing suppliers, and they're not willing to switch for the possible chance that they'll get better gains from somewhere else. They prefer those certain gains over the risky chance of greater gains. A crisis changes all that. Now they're in a domain of loss. They're focused on costs. They're focused on losses. And in that environment, they may be much more willing to switch suppliers. So it is a great opportunity to get new customers. In addition, some of your competitors may be facing financial challenges, so it's a great opportunity to build out your customer base. And the final thing that this environment creates is an opportunity to deepen client relationships and customer relationships. In challenging times like these, our customers need us more. They're more dependent on us, and it's a great time to really foster and build and expand customer relationships. So I think there are many opportunities that this crisis creates for us. And what we don't want to do is to experience the stress of this environment and not leverage those opportunities. We don't want to get to the end of this recession and have only suffered the pain of the crisis. We want to make sure we're taking advantage of the opportunities that it creates. To handle this situation, both the challenges and the stress, as well as the opportunities, though, requires us to negotiate well. We are presented with many negotiating opportunities in today's world, and we want to think about how can we negotiate effectively in those situations. In particular, we need to be aware that there are a number of traps that we often fall into when we negotiate in challenging times. And I want to talk about those traps one at a time and give you some strategy for overcoming those traps. The first trap is a very serious one. The first trap is that we often go into negotiations during stressful times unprepared. We're so stressed that we get thrown into these situations and we go in without being ready. It's critical that you get prepared for negotiations, because the better prepared negotiator always does better. I've got to get ready before I start.